episode 42. We are fast approaching the Christmas period, or we are in the Christmas period. I'm Gideon. This is my host Darian, otherwise known as Darizi, and
Oi.
today we today we're going to be speaking about the concept of putting Christ back into Christmas. But before we get into that, Mr. Darizi, how's the week been?
The week has been good, bro. Pretty good, thanks. Didn't get up to too much. Just chilled. Just looking forward to what God has for me. Constantly just being faithful to Him, and yeah, chilled week on my side and your side, bro.
Yeah, no, my side. I mean, you know, I've had a I've had a difficult month or so. Just for context, guys, we are currently recording this on 12th of November. So by the time this comes out, it's what yeah, it's gonna be a 15 December. So it's like a week before Christmas. So it'll be a very
Easy.
different period. But I think for me, I've just been so grateful in terms of the I mean, one, just going through a struggle when you have God in your life, like when you have a really
Mm,
close relationship with God in your life, is just so much more different than other periods when you're struggling with stuff and you're trying to do it on your own strength. But I think another thing I've just been so grateful for is just the Christ-centered community I have. You know, the people I can just message and be like, "Yo, I'm going through this. Can you pray for me?" And we kind of just chat through the issues and
mm,
stuff. But I think that's been very, very important. I know for me it was a big goal this year. Like my biggest goal was to just find some close Christian friends, and then like literally at the start of the year, Darian is messaging me and he's like, "Hey, you want to be accountability buddies?" And look at us, dude! Almost the end of the year,
crazy,
you've been uploading
crazy.
episodes, which is wild. Um, but yeah, no, I've just been so grateful in that regard. But yeah, why don't you kick us off, Darizi?
Yeah, so good, bro. Yes. So today is basically a part two of last week, where we putting the Christ back into Christmas. Which we realize is much needed. Okay, and yeah, like there's a whole lot of things we're going to be talking about. But one in particular is Santa Claus, right, and the whole concept of that and how that's created, and what it's kind of done is it's kind of replaced this the message of God, right? It's kind of replaced the message of Jesus, where we see Santa Claus being idolized a lot of the time. Okay, you look in every store, you walk in shopping malls, there's just pictures of him everywhere. There's this white beard. Okay, like the whole thing is there.
Yeah,
You go to Gateway, you go to all these malls, and you'll see like how kids line up, going to see Santa Claus, sit on his lap, tell them what they want. This guy basically just tells their parents, "Okay, get this for them. That's what they want," and that's what happens. That's that, right? Like it's this whole
100%.
kind of thing that happens every single year, generation after generation. Um, the Christmas movies, he just he's in the main stage, right? He's in the spotlight in most cases. And Santa Claus isn't biblical at all. Okay, like it's not. There's no reference to Christ whatsoever, and it's kind of a kids thing where kids kind of relate to the concept of Christmas because of that, um, which I get to an extent, but also it's a little concerning knowing that that's what kids are idolizing, right? Kids are kind of
Yeah,
fixating on Santa Claus as this god, basically. That's the god of Christmas. That's what happens. Um, and yeah, like that was something that I've noticed as well. It's like it's manipulating kids as well. And then you get parents that say like, oh, like if you do this, you'll be on Santa's good list and you'll get your presents. But if you're naughty, like you're not going to be getting your presents. You're going to be Santa's bad list, okay, on the naughty list. And that's kind of like this concept that's being created. And we think like it's not that bad or it's okay, like it's fine, it's just for kids. But if you really think about it, like deeply think about that, that's very shocking. Okay, it's quite scary knowing that this is how we brainwash kids essentially. And then obviously they grow up and they get older and they realize, okay, Santa Claus isn't real. My parents have been buying me gifts this whole time, that kind of thing, right? But it's a scary concept, okay, especially when it comes to Christmas, the time where it's supposed to be about Jesus and the birth of Jesus. That is literally the entire message of Christmas, what it's about, why we celebrate, okay? Um, but yeah, I think Santa Claus is like the main elements that we seem to idolize during this time of the year. But yeah, good. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that.
um, yeah, no, that was good, bro. I think it's so blatant seeing how Satan has managed to just completely pervert an
Mm,
overtly Christian holiday. Like it's literally in the name Christmas. Like it's about celebrating the birth of Christ. And if you look at a lot of the
crazy.
traditions nowadays, they have nothing to do with Christ. But I think one of the most obvious signs that it's so long about God is Santa Claus, and you can also see it in Easter where they've kind of brought in the Easter Bunny. But with Christmas particularly, the whole concept of Santa Claus, like you mentioned it, it's definitely centered around the kids, and that's something that is very concerning. You think
Mm,
about the way we grew up, we just picture it, dude. Whenever Christmas comes along, you've got all the Christmas songs, right? And we'll get into the music later. But I remember back, when I was in Zimbabwe, we used to. I was in grade like from grade one to like grade four, so this would have been what 2007 to what 2011. I remember around Christmas time we'll do the Christmas carols, right? But I remember singing like
mm,
"Joy to the World," um, like those
yeah.
kinds of songs. Like it's about God. It's the Christian songs. Nowadays, I can guarantee, bro. I can guarantee here in Joburg, especially, I can guarantee if I was to go to like a Redham or Crawford or whatever, like I can guarantee if I was to go to the primary schools, there's no way they're singing "Joy to the World," or "Come Let Us Adore
Oh,
Him" or anything like that. I think it's definitely going to be centered around Jingle Bells. What's this? Deck the Halls, all those kinds of songs, right? But I think just taking it back to the whole Santa Claus thing, when kids grow up around that, you growing up going to school busy singing like these kinds of Christmas, they're not Christmas carols anymore, they're just Christmas songs. You're watching movies about love, like we mentioned
mm,
it last week, and a lot of the movies are about like love. You picture like I think you're gonna speak about it later. The most popular song, most popular Christmas song is Mariah Carey's song, "All I Want for Christmas Is You," and it's like all about love. And then there's this whole concept of getting gifts, and that's the most exciting thing about kids, right? Like when kids think about Christmas, what do you think about gifts? Or who can give me gifts, or how many gifts can I get? How can I be on Santa's naughty or nice list? And I think this is where it really
mm,
starts to paint the picture, right? Santa Claus is a gross perversion of who God is, and it's replacing God with this false God. And I think as Christians, it kind of seeps into our view of God. But I think just in general, think about it, right? You've got this dude. Okay, you've got this dude with like a long beard. Um, he's got the sled and he travels around all around the world. It's almost supernatural, right? How does he get to all those houses, with like 8 billion people on the planet, he's going around and he's giving
mm.
gifts, and you're just
It's
hoping, he
great.
notices you, right? And you write him a list. Again, it's ridiculous. If everyone writes him a
Sure.
list of all the gifts you want, all your gifts you want, how's he gonna know all that, right? Unless he's some kind of supernatural god. Um, and now you're
Sure.
trying to get onto his nice list, right? He's got a naughty list, and he's got a nice list. And now you've kind of got to be, you want to get on his nice list, and you're trying to gain his approval so he can give you what you want. And that sounds very familiar to the way a lot of people see God. They treat God like this divine Santa Claus, this divine
Mm,
who, he's gonna, if you just do what he wants, he'll give you the things you want. I don't need your guidance. I don't need to submit to you. I don't need you to tell me what to do in my life. Okay, I just want you to give me my three wishes like a genie. I want you to give me my gifts that I want. And then once you give me those, I can just carry on with life and we can be on good terms. I don't have to talk to you again until I need gifts. And that's a similar thing with Santa Claus. And I think for me, that's again, it's a gross perversion. Never mind the fact that it's taking away from the fact that this is a holiday that's supposed to be celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. Just that whole concept of Santa Claus being
sure.
this god. And we spoke about the songs again. You're busy singing about Santa. You're singing giving glory to Santa. Or I remember the song called Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Again, you're singing about his reindeers. It's all about Santa, and oh, maybe he'll notice me this Christmas or whatever it is, and it's just ridiculous. Yeah,
Sure. That's so good what you're saying about the Christmas list and then Santa delivering the presents to everyone. Like, it's basically replaced God. Like, if you think about that. And he has to be supernatural in order to get to all those. Yo, like, that's so good. Um,
yeah.
very, very true. And it makes you think, why does everyone celebrate Christmas? And it's because Christ isn't in it. That's why it's so easy for them to sing these songs and to celebrate. and you're getting everyone celebrating. It's not just Christians. Okay, like that's why. It's
Yeah.
because it's become so commercialized. Okay, it's commercialized. It's everywhere. You're seeing it everywhere. There's no form of Christianity in it. Okay, Jesus in the manger is kind of pushed to the side. You don't see a lot of nativity plays. You don't see those are kind of going away. Like they're kind of getting thrown out. I can't remember the last time I've seen like a nativity kind of scene anywhere in
What's
the
that?
last I don't know how many years. The nativity is like Jesus and the manger, Joseph, the three wise men. That scene.
Uh,
Um, yeah, like I remember we used to have one in the house, like a little set. Um, but yeah, like that's kind of like those plays. I remember when I was younger, I was probably in the primary school I go to is like literally next to my house. Winnie the Pooh, and I was probably like two, no, not two. What am I saying? Four, 3 or 4, and
mhm.
I think I was part of the nativity. I remember. So I was one of the three wise men. So like I remember that like whole kind of thing. That you carry that tradition all the time. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, like just thinking about that, it's so crazy how that's being replaced. You know, like how that's being kicked out essentially. And I was actually thinking about something as well. Like while you're speaking, it's also when you're talking about romantic Christian movies, because there's so many. I mentioned my mom's hooked on those, but like they're creating
Yeah.
kind of like this romantic kind of lustful setting when it comes to Christmas. Okay, the time when it's supposed to be about Jesus. Nothing
Yeah.
about Jesus at all. Okay, like you can watch all the Christian movies and you'll see that. Yes, you do get some that are about Jesus, they're about God. Um, Very few, but you'll find them. Okay, they're there. But I was also thinking about like the concept of a mistletoe, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, think about that for a second. Like when you're under mistletoe, you have to kiss someone. Like that's, I mean, how is that biblical? How is that even relating to Christianity in any way possible? Okay, I know Justin Bieber has a song called Mistletoe, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I think about that, and I'm just like, like that's crazy. There's that song as well, like I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus underneath the mistletoe last night. Like there's songs like that, right? Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. You really
Yeah.
think about it and you go deep into it and you're just like, oh, Darren, you're being religious. It's Christmas. It's a festive season. What are you talking about? You're pretty much just being like everyone else when you're not supposed to be called that way. Like you're not supposed to be called into that, and you're trying to be like everyone else. You're listening to all these songs. Okay, just really think about it, pray about it, and think about it, because that's not normal. Okay, like when you indulge in all these festive seasonal things, okay, you going further and further away from God. And that's literally what's happening with Christmas. Like there's so many things that are happening in the world. Then we spoke about the UK, where like churches are not being called churches anymore, they're being called communities, and it's where people literally walk in parks, okay, together. That's church for them. That's what's happening, okay? Like the same thing's gonna happen with Christmas, okay? I won't be surprised in like the next 10 years if Christmas is called something else and they change the name of that, because that's what the world's doing, okay? They're trying to push out
Yeah.
anything that has to do with Jesus, okay? The world hated me before it loved you, hated me before it hated you, okay? That is what the Bible says. That's what Jesus told his disciples. He says that, okay, in John. It's very clear. Um, but yeah, I just thought about like mistletoes, and also like just I want to emphasize also how the Bible literally calls us aliens and strangers. Like 2 Peter tells us that, where we temporary residents. Okay, we're not supposed to conform. We're not supposed to celebrate Christmas like everyone else. Um, we're supposed to set the example. Okay, we are supposed to set the example for our generations to come, for people to see that and then celebrate in that way. And what's happened is that we've learned to celebrate Christmas with the people in front of us who kind of have this festive season vibe going on, and the lights and the tree, this and that. Okay, like I'll be honest, like our family, we do a Christmas tree, we decorate together. That's a cool time. It's a fun time spending time with the family. Okay, but there's no idolization around it. I'll say that. And then
Mm.
secondly, like, Christ is the focus. Okay, instead of listening to all those songs like Deck the Halls, Jingle Bells, all these songs that have nothing to do with God, why not listen to some worship? Why not listen to something that's more meaningful in that moment? Which I think sounds a bit like, oh, that's so weird. How can I listen to worship in Christmas? Like, there's a reason why this Christmas playlist, there's a reason why, like all of that. But I mean, think about it. What is the real reason? Okay, why is this day invented? Okay, why the 25th of December? Why do we celebrate this? Think about Christmas. Okay, where does the word come from? Who does it come from? When you think about it in that way, it changes your entire perspective of the whole thing. You don't celebrate it the way you would. But yeah, that's what I wanted to just add there.
Yeah, I think that's so good, especially with the whole thing of like the mistletoe. It's like, as a Christian, you've got to step back and look and be like, what on earth?
Crazy.
What does a mistletoe
Crazy.
have to do with
Yeah.
Christmas? Like that story you're saying of the kid who's like, I saw mommy kissing Santa underneath the mistletoe. It's like,
It's a
again,
song, yeah.
yeah, song. I remember something like that. I think that song. What? What does this have to do with the birth of Jesus? And also, when you're
Crazy.
speaking about the nativity plays, genuinely, bro, I don't know when last I saw that. I don't know when last I saw one.
Mm,
Um, Again, I remember doing them when I was in Zimbabwe. You know, when I was like in grade 3, grade 4, whatever it was. I don't
mm.
remember seeing them when I came to South Africa. That we sure as hell never did one in Northwood, bro. Um, I don't know. Can you remember one?
No, no, we didn't. We didn't. It's more
Like
like the primary schools that do it. Yeah, it's not really
that's
high
yeah. I mean,
school.
yeah, it is a bit more fitting, but I think also another thing you mentioned about like how people think it's weird like listening to worship on Christmas. Um, I think we'll get into this a bit later as well, but I think it's just another show of importance why you should have a relationship with God, because when you said that, dude, my heart was like I just felt like so good. Like for me, that's something I'm like, that must be so awesome, dude. Can you imagine on Christmas Day, dude, with your family and friends, surrounding each other in church, and you guys are singing like,
Mm,
worship songs to Jesus. Like for me, I'm like, bro, that sounds so awesome, right? But I can imagine to somebody who's so
mm.
used to the worldly traditions of Christmas, that sounds boring. Like, why on earth would you do that?
Yeah.
And it just reminds me again of the journey I've kind of been taken through this year, where something like music at the start of the year, I was listening to my normal like secular music. Nowadays, dude, the first thing I think of when I'm listening to music is like, bro, I'm running to like worship music. Like that's what's on
Yeah.
my mind. That's what I want to listen to. That's what I'm like, oh, that is so good. Like that's what I like. And I think that's that process of sanctification that takes place, when you do start building a relationship with God, you still start spending more time with God. You start liking the things of God.
Mm,
I forgot the verse, but someone said something along the lines of, when you take one step towards God, He takes two steps towards you. And I
mm.
forgot that. I think it's in Proverbs, but it's again,
It's
if you
great.
seek God, He'll show Himself to you, right? So I think it's one of those, just a change of heart, right? Like genuinely, if you're somebody who has a true relationship with God, like dude, it's the birth of Christ. Like I think spending
Yeah.
that time with God for me sounds awesome. Like it sounds way better than all the like jingle bell stuff and all that stuff. But I think it takes me swiftly into like the next point I'll just speak about, which is the distractions, right? Which is, we mentioned this in the last episode, but
Mm,
we spoke about how when Satan can't turn you away from God, he just distracts, and Christmas is just a whole distraction. Like Satan's main purpose is to distract us from the glory of God. And you've spoken about it. I know I've seen a couple of TikToks you made over the last couple of months about the narrow road. Yeah, and you also said about how he makes um the road to hell
mm,
look pretty. I saw something yesterday, and it was again just a picture again of the road to hell and the road to Christ. And the road to hell is just, it's it's wide. There's so many people, and you're like surrounded. Like people are walking like in packs. And then I checked the road to Christ. It's like, it's narrow. First of all, it is a narrow road, but people are walking like on by themselves basically. And I think that's
mm.
why we put such an emphasis on Christian community, because it definitely helps to have community going there. But I was just thinking about those people that are on their way to hell, and I'm like, they're surrounded by so many people who are just like them, right? They can't see. Again, the way it
Mm,
looks is like
mm,
the
mm,
gates of hell look, they're massive. They look pretty. The path looks pretty. But then the gates to heaven it's small. It's a small little gate. But then obviously you've got the wide picture, the wide view, and you can see how beautiful heaven is, and you can see how terrible hell is. But like those people who are walking to hell, first of all, they don't know anything about where they're walking, because they're way too distracted, right? They're way too
sure.
distracted by whatever, by the path, like how nice it is, and they're surrounded by people. Like I'm thinking of all these people there. You're never ever gonna stop and think and be like, maybe I should stop this road where I'm surrounded by all these people, where I'm comfortable, where everything looks great, right? And go to that narrow road, that little gate that doesn't look very promising, right? Maybe you're never gonna stop and do that, right? Because you're so
Mm.
distracted, you're so comfortable. You're comfortable where you're going. And I think that's a similar thing that Satan will use. Like Christmas, Easter, they're the most blatant examples of this, right? We spoke now about how Santa Claus has been made this god. Um, but like Christmas, you're so distracted. No one, I mean, apart from the people who are obviously like watching podcasts like these, or people who just genuinely like put the focus on Christ and Christmas, most people are not thinking about this. They're thinking, oh, Christmas, dude, it's been such a long year. I can't wait to have a Christmas holiday, go be with my family, go exchange gifts, go sing, all these Christmas songs, go to New York and see like the ball drop for New Year's. Like there's just all these festivities, right? And it makes you feel good. It makes you feel nice. It makes you feel so comfortable. But again, it's that comfortability that makes you not care. Like you're not gonna get bro. I'm just thinking now of all the people around the world who are celebrating Christmas that don't even think about the fact that this is about the birth of Jesus, right? And I think another thing that really depicts that is that you get atheists. We spoke about this. You get people who are not Christians who support Christmas, right? And it's more than just people who are like lukewarm Christians who kind of believe in a God, but they kind of just like whatever. But like people who are vehement atheists, like they don't believe a God exists. They hate God. They'll celebrate Christmas, right? The fact that they're so comfortable celebrating Christmas shows you just how much Christmas is so removed from Christ, right? And I think
Mm.
it's important for us as Christians to fight big time against those distractions, because that's the easiest way that you can spend your time away from God. I'm just literally just thinking about that picture I saw. All these people walking to hell. They're surrounded by so many people who think just like them. They have absolutely no reason to stop and go on the narrow road. And for me, yeah, I was just like, Christmas is definitely a way that this is happening. It's distracting through pleasure. You spoke about like the mistletoe and all that. Everyone's just caught up in the hype. And yeah, you're never really gonna think about putting Christ back in Christmas.
Sure. That's good. I love what you said about how atheists literally celebrate. That's it's so ironic.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's crazy how that's what the world's come to, and um, I really thank God that I've mended this relationship with Him to know that the way we're doing life and the way we do Christmas is not right. Like it's not. It should be different. The Holy Spirit convicts you on the things that aren't right, that you need to fix. Um, and a lot of the time we ignore that call because of how comfortable we are, because of where we positioned, and we don't feel the need to try anything new. We don't feel the need to get out of our comfort zone. And I know there's a church, Link Church in Bolito, and I'll never forget this message. And I think I mentioned it before here. But the pastor there, Pastor Dole, said that where you grow, where you go, you grow. Always used to say that. Like where you go, you grow. You have to get out there in order to grow. You have to be uncomfortable. Get in those uncomfortable situations. Okay, I know Marcus Rashford as well said it. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations in order to grow. And you see this happen with a lot of people. And I know that isn't a biblical example, but it shows that uncomfortability is what makes people grow. And that might mean that you need to celebrate Christmas differently. You might not have to go over the top and have all these lights and have all these crazy gifts and all this food and all these things. Maybe it means something that's simple. Okay, why does Paul write the letter to the Thessalonians and tells him to live a simple life? Why does he tell them that? Okay, he tells them to make it your goal. Okay, other versions of the Bible say make it your ambition. Okay, do you know what ambition is? It means it's literally like that one thing that you have to, like, you desire that, like that is at the top. You're aiming towards that goal. That is something you're pushing towards. Make it your goal and your ambition to live a simple and quiet life. And then what does the next verse say? It says, minding your own business. Okay, that is literally what Paul instructs him to do. Who instructed Paul to say that? Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
That is what it means. Okay. That is what it means to live a simple and quiet life. And the same can apply to Christmas. Okay. And a distraction I'll definitely say is getting gifts, okay, instead of giving back. That's a distraction, okay, because you got to think about why this whole holiday started, okay, why we celebrate Christmas. We celebrate Christmas because there was a gift given to us. So now we think we have to give gifts to other people, okay, like we have to spend this much and we have to buy everyone a gift, and our gift determines whether we love someone, okay. That's the crazy part I see with a lot of people is that how much I've spent on the gift shows you how much I've loved you, right? That's how it is sometimes. And
Yeah,
we got to understand that there's only one gift that will ever matter in our lives, and that's Jesus. You can buy someone gifts that are so expensive, this, that, whatever, but it doesn't matter because the ultimate gift is Jesus. It's God, okay? So that's why I said, like when I want to celebrate Christmas, I want to give back. I don't want to buy all these expensive gifts and all these crazy toys for my kids that they won't even remember in the next couple of years. Okay, like there's no point in that. Give back. Like give to those who don't have. Give to those who want to celebrate Christmas but they don't know how to. And they don't have the means to celebrate it. Okay, give to homeless people, that kind of thing. It's like it's finding ways to give back to those people. Because we've received the gift, and there's some people they don't know they've received that gift. They don't know Jesus. They don't know
yeah,
what he's done. And so that's, I think, is a beautiful opportunity to use Christmas in that way to bless other people who need that blessing. Um, and I wanted to say this as well, like with distractions, is that, if you spend your life, okay, you spend time with Jesus in prayer and worship, you listen to sermons, reading your Bible, all these things, okay? Christmas shouldn't be a day where that's forgotten about. Okay, it should be a day where you're doing those things and you're still giving emphasis towards Jesus. There's even more emphasis on him. And what do we do in Christmas? We sit back, we lay back, we go to church for like an hour and a half, and then it's done. That our time with Jesus is done. Then it's just like family gifts, that kind of thing, right? Jesus is forgotten again. And that should be a day where you remember him more so because of his birth, because of him coming into the world, okay? He came to the world because we are sinful. Okay, we are too sinful, and the world is going absolutely crazy, right? It was like Sodom and Gomorrah on steroids, and God needed to send His Son to help us in that aspect. And remembering that is so amazing, so beautiful. Like the fact that we've been given that gift of Jesus is insane, and more so, even given the Holy Spirit as well. Like it's just God's just blessed us with so much that we need to be thankful for that. And Christmas is the beautiful opportunity where we can be thankful and we can remember that. But yeah, just want to mention that.
yeah, yo. Well, that was so good. I forgot the one thing I wanted to speak about. Um, but the part where you spoke about like living a simple life, bro. That I know you mentioned it. I remember there was a
Yeah.
time you made a YouTube video on it, and yeah, you mentioned it to me the one time we're having a conversation about how Paul implores us. You said it was in Thessalonians, to live
Mm,
a simple and quiet life. And again, bro, it just points to the Christian posture that we should have, right?
yeah.
If your life is about God and not you, you're not going to be seeking all these big flashing lights. It's going to be live a simple and quiet life. It's not about you, it's
Mm,
about God, right? And the funniest thing is
true.
that everything we're searching for, everything the world is searching for, right, is found through God, right? So it's found through that simple and quiet life. People are like, nah, I can't live this simple and quiet life, including, I don't know about you, but for me, like, it's something I'm like, I hear it, I understand it, but in my heart, I still seek, this glory for myself or whatever it is, because I feel like somehow, some way, it's gonna give me the validation I want, whatever it is. But it takes me back to what Jesus said about if you drink the water of this world, you will be thirsty again. But if you drink of my water,
Mm,
you will never thirst again. The living a simple and quiet life. Again, picture the Christmas thing, right? Us just speaking now about how Christmas shouldn't be, these massive red, white, and green like decorations, and singing, dashing through the snow, watching all these Christmas
yeah.
movies, exchanging gifts, doing all these massive things, right, for everyone to see. Or going to like New York, right, like being in these massive places, but rather it should be a celebration of the birth of Christ. Us just saying that is like, whoa, dude, you're dampening the Christmas spirit. What are you doing, right? Like, why are you? I'm like,
Yeah.
bro,
It's
your
true.
Christmas,
Very
your
true.
Christmas spirit is a demonic Christmas spirit. I'm embracing the true
Sure.
Christmas spirit. Um,
Mm.
but anyways, I think that's also a thing that ties in very well with the whole concept of living a simple and quiet life and how we shouldn't chase all these big flashing lights, right? Because something I did write down was like the whole concept of like wanting to upstage, because that's how the world is, right? Back again to what Jesus said about drinking water, about drinking of His water, right? If you chase the things of this world, it just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding because you're just trying to get that hit, that higher and higher hit, right? Like we can go back to
Mm.
a topic that probably you wouldn't think like ties in very well with this, but like the whole topic of sex, right? Like God made it very simple, right? Man and woman, husband and wife, right? Within that covenant. That's where sex is supposed to be. But then the world kind of blew it up. And they were like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go around and just, how are you going to know who you really like are meant to be with if you don't sleep around with a bunch of people, right? Then that expands. You have this stupid concept of polyamorous marriage. It's like, that's so contradictory because the definition of a marriage is, the covenant of between a man and a woman, right? But like, now all of a
Mm.
sudden if there's different people and it's not a marriage, it's stupid. But anyways, you see this whole concept of like upstaging. You look at porn, for example, for people who have been like into porn or whatever it is, it's like any other addiction, right? It just takes more and more and more and more until you look back and you're like, bro, how on earth did I get here? Right. And
Mm.
that's how like sex is, you see the perversion. We don't need to talk about like the rainbow flag people, but like you see how it's just kept upstaging, right? It's where it started from like same-sex relationships to now, all this polyamory, and then now it's like changing genders, and then now it's like all this stuff, and it just keeps expanding and expanding because people are just searching for the next hit, and it's just
Mm.
never enough. And I think that's just the whole concept we have in relation to just the world in general. When you run away from God, right, you start seeking something that only God could ever fill. There's this whole concept that people always speak about, we all have a God-shaped hole in our hearts. And when you try to fill that with other things, it's just a
Mm.
poor substitute for God. And when you look at Christmas again, if you put the two up, let's say we're doing a little presentation right now and we're saying Christmas is it's meant to be Christmas as a Christian versus the worldly Christmas, right? On the front end of it, you've got a simple and quiet life here. You've got, you're going to church, singing, godly songs. You're watching like nativity plays. You're going out into the world and you're giving back to people, right? You're doing that on Christmas. Versus the other aspect, where you've got, all the Mariah Carey songs, you got the mistletoe stuff, you got Santa Claus, you got all these gifts, you
Mm.
got all these massive like traditions, and all this stuff, right? It looks so much better. But then when you look at it again, people are just constantly looking for this hit of like, oh, how can we upstage this year? How can we make it better this year? How can we make it better? And then you keep going up and up until you reach a point where it's like, dude, I'm not getting what I want from Christmas anymore because I'm just looking to get this hit. Think about the concept we spoke about of like love movies, for example. People are during the Christmas period, there's always this concept of people looking for love during Christmas, right? And
Mm.
again, it's like you're looking for that and then you're left disappointed. I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious to see how people feel the day after Christmas. Because I mean, if you're with family and stuff, it's cool. You still hang out with family. It's still like a nice Christmas period. But then you leave that Christmas period, and then what? Now you've had this massive celebration, and you've done all these fun things or whatever. January comes along, it's back to normal life, right? But if you celebrate it as a Christian, right, and you're not looking for love from a person, you're looking at the love that God had to send His one and only Son to come and die for you, right? All of a
Mm.
sudden, like think about how that would change you. You spent your Christmas period or Christmas celebrating love Jesus. And you know that he's never going to go away, right? There's no thing of like, oh, the Christmas period is over now. I've got to stop celebrating the love of Jesus, like you would with like normal Christmas stuff. Right now, it's like, oh, Jesus, like he loves me, right? The Holy Spirit resides inside of me. I've got him like with me every single day, right? It's a love that extends just the
Yeah.
whole celebration. Right now, it's no longer Christmas is no longer this thing of I'm looking to get something out of it, but it's just a celebration of what I already have. And I remembered what I'd forgotten to speak about. It was the whole concept of the gift, right? Because we look at like these gifts we're supposed to be getting from people, but it's like we're supposed to be celebrating the gift we've already gotten from God, right? To send His one and only Son to die for us, right? Like that's the
Mm.
ultimate gift. and we didn't deserve it. We didn't have to get on the nice list or get off the naughty list. We didn't have to leave out cookies and cream or cookies and milk or whatever it is for
Yeah.
Santa to come and eat it. Like there was none of that, right? He just gave it to you freely
Sure.
before you were even a thing, before you were even born, before your
Mm.
great grandparents were even born. Um,
Crazy.
and I think the one thing we should, like, if you really like digest that, right, you really
Mm.
appreciate the gift that has been given to you, right?
Sure.
You'll take so much pleasure, so much joy, so much um fulfillment from, again, I'm not giving that gift to anyone else. When I go and I share the gospel on Christmas, I'm not giving the gift to anyone else. I'm just making them realize the gift they already have. And that's my gift to them, right? Like
Mm.
just making them realize what they already
Yeah.
have. Um, I think that something we do miss as Christians as well. It was this sermon we had on Sunday evening. There's this guy called Brett at this church, we've been going to, and they're preaching through the Matthew series, and he was preaching through the part when Jesus is about to go and get crucified, right? And he kind of went through everything in detail. I remember the one thing he said was he was describing how it was to die on a cross. Um, and normally the average time it takes to die on a cross is like 2 days. And Jesus died in 3 hours. And apparently that's something the Muslims also are like, oh no, we can't believe in Jesus because why would he die in 3 hours? Us, they came up with like a bunch of like nonsense and stuff, but we're not going to get into that. But he was just detailing how like you don't die on the
Mm.
cross from like, I don't know, you don't die from what you think you die from. Like you die from suffocation because when the way it is when you're on a cross, right? Your hands are nailed into the sides of the cross, and then your feet are nailed at the bottom of the cross. And
Mm.
if you kind of just let yourself hang, you're hanging down like this. You can't breathe. So you kind of had to keep doing this whole motion of like using your heels that have been like, been nailed at the bottom. You use that to kind of push yourself up like this so you can breathe. And then it's like a whole thing. You're doing it over and over again. It's like such a gruesome, like it's a terrible death. Um, and then he was detailing all the things that were happening up to that point. Um, like just the whole thing, like how I think it was Pontius Pilate, like they spoke about how they were asking about King of the Jews, right? They were like, oh, would you rather have Barabbas? Barabbas was like this notorious, like evil criminal, right? They asked the Jews, like, do you want me to release Jesus or do you want me to release this criminal, right? And then all the Jews, they were like, no, release the criminal. And then he was speaking about how the Romans, they were mocking, Jesus. They stripped him, like they stripped him naked. Like it's again another thing with the cross where we kind of picture Jesus, we've got him up on the cross and he's got like this little thing covering him. That wasn't the case when he was there. When people got crucified, they
Mm.
were crucified naked, and that's how he was crucified. It was embarrassing, and he did that for us, right? But again, he was reading through the book, and he was speaking about how the Romans, when they were taking him to crucify him, again they were mocking him so much, so they stripped him naked, and then they kind of put this like I think it was a scarlet red robe over him because again in Jewish culture, it was a thing where it was a not a sin. It was like it was just bad to be naked in public. So like they covered him, but like the
Mm.
scarlet robe was something you'd give to somebody who was royalty, right? And they were mocking him, calling him like King of the Jews, King of the Jews. And he was King of the Jews, like he was king of everyone, right? But they were kind of mocking him. They were giving him this, and then they were like, "Oh, we're gonna put a crown on your head. We're not gonna give you a proper crown. We're gonna give you a crown of thorns." And they were like worshiping him, like mocking him and all that. And it's like just this whole thing is like we know what he did for us, but we don't feel like what he did for us. Like we don't truly
Mm.
about like he went through all of that. Like think about all these people busy doing that. I think of the time when they were coming to arrest Jesus and Peter slashed this one guy's ear, and then Jesus rebukes him and he's like, "Do you not think I can bring like legions of angels upon these people right now and stop them immediately?" Right? It was one of those things where it's like Jesus is like, this has to happen, and I'm letting it happen, right? And again, that's just the gift that God gave to us, right? That he was willing to send his son to come and die for us. And I think that's something you don't hear stuff like that on Christmas, bro. You don't hear any of that, bro.
Yeah,
You
I
hear
know.
and it's like that's so much deeper. Like if you can really take some time on Christmas to meditate on that, right? It's like that's gonna have so much more of an impact on you than little gifts or busy searching for love or whatever it is. And when you really like understand that, you're like, why would I not want to go and share this with someone else on Christmas? You know, why can't I share this joy? It's like, dude, everything you're looking for in this world, you already have, right? You already have that love you're looking for. And it's so much more sufficient than what this world can give you. Yeah.
Yes, that was so good. Exactly. Like we don't realize what Jesus did for us. Well, we do, but we don't realize the extent.
Mm.
And yeah, like I remember, like I've also watched videos of guys like scientists and archaeologists who go through like how painful would have been for someone to go through Jesus's death, and like they were crying, like talking about it because it's like
Yeah.
the most painful day to ever go through. Like that's literally what Jesus went through for us, literally for those
Mm.
people mocking him, for those people lashing him. He died for them, which is it's crazy to think about that. Like if you put yourself in the shoes, like oh
Yeah.
man, it's honestly crazy. And yeah, like that's literally why we celebrate. And it's so sad because we don't ever acknowledge that. Like Christmas is the time where we should be acknowledging that, and we just don't. And we mostly, like, I think it's Easter, Good Friday. Good Friday is when we think about it, about
Mm.
what Jesus did. But I think also Christmas should be another time where we do it. Like where it's every day should actually be
Yeah.
you should be reminding yourself every single day of what Jesus did for you. That's why I think we did that message about church and fellowship, and we said that the church requires an element of the breaking of bread, right?
Yeah.
Because it's important to remember that. Like that's something that should be done weekly in churches, I feel. Um, and what happens now is that churches also very commercialized. They do it once a month to keep themselves holy, but it should be something that's done every single week. Like it's vital for churches to function. Acts 2:42 says that. But one thing I also wanted to, before this point, I think you're speaking about it, was God's path, right? And God's path is not supposed to be attractive. Okay, Satan's
Yeah.
path is attractive. God's isn't. Okay, it's not supposed to be an attractive option. You don't look at God's path and you're like, oh yeah, like I definitely want to follow this. I definitely want to follow a narrow road that has all these obstacles and no one else is going on that road. Every one of my friends, all the people I know going down this road, it's not supposed to be an attractive option, but Jesus calls us to that option because it leads to eternal life. It leads to a life of fulfilled abundance. Okay. Romans 8:18. Okay, what you're going through now doesn't compare to what you'll experience later, the glory that will be revealed to you later. It's looking to the unseen. Okay, most people live for what's now. They live in the present. They continuously, and you hear those people quote things like, oh, I just want to live in the present. I just want to be mindful of like what's going on around me. And it's good to live in the present, okay, but the Bible literally teaches us to see the unseen. It teaches us to live by faith and not by sight. Okay,
Yeah.
living by faith and not by sight means you're not living in the present, you're not living in the past, you're not living in the future, you're just living to see God. Like you're living for his glory. That's why you do what you do. You don't live to fulfill your future, you don't live to fulfill your present, you don't live to outlive your past. Okay, you live for God. That's the most important thing. And that's God's part there, where it's not attractive, but it's rewarding. Okay.
Yeah.
And I always picture this where there's a picture I saw about how, Satan's part, like the road to hell, it's broad, and I saw this one picture, and there's gold, there was all these things like porn, all these things drunk, there's all these like bottles and all these things on this road, and people were just walking, and it was going up like this, but then there was a drop. So like as you
Mm.
get to the top, you just go down and you fall and you're dead. Right.
Yep.
And I saw that picture and I was like, crazy. Right. Like
Yeah.
that is literally what it means. But this narrow path that God has, like you can hardly fit on that path. Okay. Like you can hardly walk properly without having blisters and thorns go in your foot and all these things. Right. But that path keeps going. It never ends. Okay. You reach eternal life. That's what it is. And it just keeps going after that. Like you will never die. And I always think about it. I'm like, you were created for a reason. And it literally blows my mind that people think that that's it. Like once you die, you're dead. Like I can't reason with that, knowing that God created me the way I am, knowing that he's done all these amazing things. Like there's surely more for you. And it's crazy how people believe in reincarnation. Like I spoke to my one friend and he said to me that, he believes he might come out as an animal. And I'm like, is that really the purpose that you think God has for you? Like, do you really think that after you've lived this life, you become an animal? And the Bible speaks about that. It says, how much more does God love you than the birds and, nature? Like,
Yeah.
how much more does he love you than all of those things? And that puts to bed reincarnation right there, right? Which I think is crazy. But anyway, that was that. And I also thought about an episode we did a couple weeks ago about pride. But when we celebrate Christmas the way we do, like everyone else, that's being prideful. Okay,
Yeah.
what is humility? It's not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. You
Mhm.
humble yourself under God when it comes to Christmas. You think of yourself less and you think about Jesus.
Yeah.
You think about your gifts less and the food and the lights and the music, and you think about Jesus. It's all about being humble as well. Humility when it comes to
Yeah.
Christmas. That's what it's about. And also adding on to what you said about sex and all these things, right? Like there was an analogy I heard from one guy in school where he said to me, like, we're talking about sex before marriage, and he said something where he said that, like, you'll never know how the car is on the road until you test drive it. That was the advice he gave me, right? In order to have sex before marriage. And I thought about it, and I was actually thinking about it the other day, like just randomly thought about it. Um, and the Holy Spirit convicted me on that and said that most times we test drive the wrong cars and get into accidents, right?
Mm,
You
man.
test drive the wrong cars and you get into accidents, always. Um, and that's what happens, right? Like sex is being manipulated. Christmas time as well, like Gideon and I were speaking about it, where like those TikToks pop up, okay, where people are doing a lot of TikTok dances and whatever, and they're wearing these provocative Christian clothing. It's crazy. Like this is literally what's happening with Christmas. Like it's getting sexualized. Um, and one thing I actually listened to was a John Bevere podcast. It's called "Rewards Aren't All the Same in Heaven," I think. And in this podcast, he spoke a lot about like Lot, okay, and where Lot was from. If you don't know the story about Lot,
Go read
weird stuff, like crazy. Um, and 2 Peter speaks about this story a bit, and 2 Peter 2 verse 10, it says that God is especially hard on those who follow their own twisted sexual desire and despise authority. Okay,
it.
that's what happens, right? Like God is hard on people whose desire is twisted. Okay, their sexual desire twists. Why does it twist? It's because they fixate on it and they keep going and they keep going. Oh, that's what happens with your sexual desires, that they keep getting more dark and they keep getting more weird. Okay, that's what happens. Okay,
Yep.
that's what Gideon was trying to say. Like that's literally what the Bible says, right? And we see that with Christmas, what I just mentioned about TikToks and stuff. Like it's dark, it's twisted, it's not, no one thought about that instantly. Oh, let's just make some like Christmas sexual. No, like there were built up thoughts. There were things that kind of kept on going for years and years. No one stopped it. Okay, they weren't getting that same hit that they're always getting at Christmas. So then what do? They make it more sexual. They sexualize the holiday. Same thing happens with Easter. Okay, you see that happening a lot. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was something I wanted to talk about. And another topic, I think it's a big one. Gideon will definitely have stuff to add on this, but music, okay, like music is key. We mentioned it before in the last episode as well. We mentioned it. But one song in particular, okay, the number one played song during Christmas every single year. It reaches the number one charts on all
Yeah.
streaming platforms. The number one song that's always being played is "All I Want for Christmas Is You" by Mariah Carey. And I just want to read out the lyrics. Most of you do know it, but I just want to read it out. Okay. I don't want a lot for Christmas. There's just one thing I need. I don't care about the presents underneath the Christmas tree. I just want you for my own, more than you could ever know. Make my wish come true. All I want for Christmas is you. Okay? Now, who is you? Okay, if you had to actually think about that, who is you? And it's romanticized. Okay, the song is romanticized. Okay, it's sexualized around one person. And that's not like biblical at all. And we listen to the song on repeat, non-stop. Okay, it's part of your Christmas playlist. Okay, don't even lie if you're denying it right now. You know it's on there. Okay, and this is literally a song that is the most played song. We speak about the influence of music so much. but you don't understand what this impact of the song is having on your life. Okay, you over fantasizing the concept of Christmas because you play these songs, you think it's fine. Oh, it's the festive season and we're all having a good time, Darian. Don't be a party pooper. It's not the fact that I'm being a party pooper. It's the fact that this is literally what the Bible says. Like, the Bible does not speak about Christmas in this light. Okay, it doesn't
Yep.
speak about it being us celebrating a way like the pagans would. Okay, the pagans would celebrate Christmas this way. They would. Okay, if they had the choice to, they obviously go extremely crazy, but that's what's happening with us, right? We're going crazy with Christmas. Okay, Christmas becomes um an idolized time, right? Another song I wanted to mention was "It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas" by Michael Bublé. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the lyrics go, "It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. Take a look at the 5 and the 10. It's glistening once again with candy canes and silver lanes that glow." Okay, did you see Jesus in any of those lines? Did you see anything to do with God in those lines? No, the whole song goes on. Okay, it speaks about hotels, it speaks about gifts, presents, holly. Okay, none of that has to do with God. And we listen to these songs on repeat during this time when I think it should be a time where we celebrate God way more. We're listening to way more worship. We're listening to way more songs that are aligned with the heart of God. Okay, Psalms 37 verse 4, we quote it all the time. Okay, align your desires with God. Okay, delight yourself in Him, and He'll grant you the desires of your heart. Okay, even though it's a short period of time. Okay, it's just one day, Christmas, cool. Um, it's an important day. Okay, it's an important time where we fixate on Jesus. Okay, we fix our eyes on Him. Okay, do not trust in your own understanding, but lean on God. Okay, lean in His ways. Okay, that's what the Bible tells us to do. And I mean, yeah, like Christmas songs. I know a lot of my family members, they listen to it. Okay, I
Yeah.
used to too. Won't lie, I used to. Okay, nice, little beat to it and all of that. But honestly, like, changing Christmas and the narrative of it is something we need to start doing, especially um, if we call to be the light, essentially.
Yeah. No, that was really good. I just want to quickly touch on what you said about like how the sexualization that takes place within Christmas, because again, we speak about
Mm.
how the focus has got absolutely nothing to do with God. But if you're wondering like what I'm speaking about, I'm sure you've seen it. But TikTok, you can just use TikTok as a great example. You have all the Christmas TikTok dances and everything on TikTok is sexualized, bro. If you don't have TikTok, keep it that way. And if you do have TikTok, just delete that app. Um,
Yeah,
you search, dude. You'll search for something. It's got this search feature, right? You'll search for something.
crazy.
Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get 4 videos that relate to the topic. After that, it's just sexual content. Like I'm not even kidding.
Mm.
But the same thing happens at Christmas, and you just left there wondering how on earth, right? Like this is about God. Or what does dancing in a skimpy Christmas outfit have to do? This whole emphasis on matching Christmas outfits and all of that. And yeah, I don't think I need to speak much more on that. I think it's just ridiculous. Um, but I think another thing I thought of while you were speaking was I was just wondering if all the people who grew up around the time Jesus was born, or the time after Jesus
Mm.
was born, or whatever, like a while back, were to see what Christmas looks like in the 21st century, you wouldn't think this is a world that is supposed to be predominantly Christian. Like you would think they would think this is it's a pagan celebration. If you told them this is the celebration
Mm.
of the birth of Jesus, they'd be
So
like, "What?
true.
How?" Like, dude, they'd see all these things. They'd see all these songs that have nothing to do with God. They'd see all these like cool celebrations, all this like dressing in like a specific color and everything. Again, nothing to do with God. This whole thing of like Santa Claus and these traditions of like exchanging gifts and all that. It sounds like a pagan holiday, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're making it a pagan holiday, and us as Christians need to fight back, definitely, but at the very least, not partake in that kind of Christmas. Right? We need to put the Christ back in Christmas, as we've said in this episode. Um, and I think, yeah, going on to like the music aspect of it, right? Like when you were reading the lyrics for "All I Want for Christmas Is You," genuinely, we spoke about this in terms of like music in general. It sounds like a worship song, like quite genuinely. I don't want a lot for Christmas. There's just one thing I want. I don't need the gifts and the presents. You're all I need. Like it sounds like a worship song, right? It's like, oh, you're all I need. It's like, who's you? Oh,
Mm,
not God, some boy or some man, right? Like, okay, I see. And this takes
crazy.
us back to thinking about the idolization of people in music. And when that culture seeps into Christianity, then we've got a problem, right? Um,
Mm,
and I think I do want us to just kind of lay the land before, well, it's too late to lay the land, but just to explain the importance of what we're speaking about right now, right? It's not a thing of, oh, we're being party poopers and it's like, oh, we're telling people, oh, God has got all these rules and you should stop celebrating Christmas like this and whatever it is, but more of a call to be like, recognize, as a Christian, recognize what Jesus did for you on that cross. And when
yeah.
you have a true and close relationship with Jesus, you're not going to want to do the things of this world. You're going to see like the beauty in what he did for you. And again, I promise you, it's a much more fulfilling celebration than the way we do Christmas. I was speaking with a friend like just now before we recorded this video. Um, we were just speaking about the concept of like evangelizing in the workplace, and we're speaking about um, like how you bring up the topic. And one of the things I was speaking about was one of my third years that I worked with. We were kind of just getting to the topic of speaking of like how you shouldn't live together before marriage. Um, and my friend was emphasizing the point that like we shouldn't make it that way of like oh Christmas is all these rules. Like if someone asks him about his marriage, right, because he's married, and he'd be busy and he'd be in the middle of working and he'd be a little bit he'd be focused. If someone asks him how's the marriage going, he's not going to want to engage and stuff, but he's like, no, this is an opportunity, for the advertisement of Christ, right? You should speak about how you truly feel about marriage. Be like, oh, marriage, I'm glad I made
Mm,
this decision. I'm learning so many things and whatever it is, right? And it's not a case of like, I'm saving myself for marriage because the Bible says I must, right? It's not a case of that. It's why we do it as Christians, but we need to package it better. We need to actually explain why we do it. So it's not just a thing of like, oh, we're just following these rules for the sake of following rules, because now we paint God as this authoritarian ruler who just wants to stop your fun, right? But it's like, no, explain. I'm loving this marriage. I'm so glad I made this decision. I get to go through life with my partner. We talk about these issues, and we share these moments together. It's really nice, and like we go through these problems, but this is how we deal with them, and that sort of thing. Like, actually explain the heart behind the law,
yeah.
right? Explain the heart behind why God is saying these things. I think it's a similar thing with Christmas, right? It's one thing for us to come here and just say, stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this. But actually, let's paint the picture for why we believe that, right? Because we don't believe we should celebrate Christmas like this because God wouldn't want us to celebrate it that way for
Yeah.
whatever reason. We don't just do it because I mean, yeah, we're Christians. We submit ourselves to God. If God says we do something, we do it, right? But we're not doing it just because He said we should do it. We're doing it because after submitting ourselves to his teachings, we get to see the fruits of why he wants us to do those things, right? And it's a similar thing with Christmas now, right? It's not just let's not do Christmas because it's evil, it's demonic, you're idolizing Santa and all of that stuff. That stuff is true, but we want to do Christmas this way because, like, genuinely, we have a really close relationship with God, and it's a celebration of what He did for us. We recognize what He did for us, and we recognize His love for us. And it's like, dude, that love is just can't explain it. I think it's called an undeniable love, unexplainable peace that you get from God, and it's one of those things where once you get it, you get it. And I think as Christians, we need to start packaging it that way because you are going to get challenged. It's going to be like, why don't you take part in all the fun things on Christmas? If you just say, oh
Mm,
no, because it's wrong, they're going to be like, you're not going to get to them that way. You need to actually explain the heart behind why we do this.
yeah.
But yeah.
That's good. That's very, very good. I was actually gonna add to that before you even mentioned that. I was gonna say that Matthew says it so well. Your people will know you by your fruits. The only way
Mm,
people are gonna see that you're a Christian is by what you do. Um, and if there's people who aren't Christians or they are, but they lukewarm and they seeing your life and they seeing the way you celebrate, that could be an indicator of your love for God to them. And they see
mm,
that and they're like, oh, like Darian, he's kind of like, it's okay, cool. Like he's celebrating Christmas and stuff, but he's actually emphasizing God more, or he's emphasizing God less. And that kind of shows his love for God. And that shows, like, I don't know if I want to be a Christian or. And that's what we say, like, you can be the only reason that someone gives their life to God or gives their life to Jesus. It's like the way you celebrate can determine that, which I think is so crazy. And another, like, verse that puts that into perspective, where, you were saying, like, how there's fruit from that when people ask you why, and you explain to them why. There's also, like, when Jesus was with his disciples and he washed their feet before he was going to be crucified. Like, he knew that everything was going to happen, and he knew that. And when he was washing their feet, he said, look, I'm going to go away, but I'll come back. Like, that's what he told them. And they said to him, like, Jesus, like, why are you leaving, why are you going? And he said to them, you won't understand now, but you will understand later. Okay, John 13 verse 7. You won't understand it now, but you will understand later. A lot of the stuff that God tells us to do, we won't understand it in the moment. Okay, people won't understand it when we're doing it, but they will understand later. Okay, they will see the fruit from it later. That's where patience comes in. Later. You're not going to see it now. You're going to see it later. Faith comes in as well. Same thing. But yeah, I don't have too much to add there. I just want to say, like, that's literally so important that we bear the fruit that God calls us to bear. Those fruits of spirit, okay? The love, joy, the peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. The way we do that, along with holiness, it's going to get people to Jesus. People will see that. But the holiness is so important. Like, anyone can have fruits of the spirit. You don't have to be a Christian to display love, joy, peace, all these things. But it's the holiness with that. It's like you're speaking about God with love. You're not just speaking loving words of affirmation and positivity, the power of positivity. You can do all those things, but there's no holiness behind that. But yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I think, yeah, we've kind of already spoken about it. But I think we want to paint the picture. So how would we celebrate Christmas as Christians, right? Like, how would we celebrate it biblically? And I just want to take us back to, what I was saying about how, we celebrate this out of love for God, right? I did mention, we don't we don't just do this because we're just these robots following what God said, because he kind of gave the law. Now, I want to make it clear, when God says we should do something, right, like, we do it, right? Even when we don't understand, we do it. But the reason we're so willing to do that as Christians is because we know God's character, right? We have an understanding of why he's put these boundaries up. There's a chapter in Psalms where David is just delighting over how perfect God's law is, right? And it's just one of those things, because we know God's character, we know that his law and following the things he says ultimately bring good for us. So it's all about his glory, but in his glory, right, we get the ultimate fulfillment we're looking for from from this world, right? So I think it's important for us to realize that we don't do it out of compulsion, or being compelled to do it because the law says you should do it. But we're so willing to do it because we know God's character behind that and why he wants us to do it. So I think this is something that, yeah, you just start wanting to do more the closer you get with God. So for me, I'm just thinking how I'm gonna want to do, like, a Christmas, if I've got my own family and stuff. I'm just thinking, like, I mean, you're definitely going to church. Like, you're gonna go and, like, you want to hear the word. Hopefully, you go to a biblical church. Hopefully, they're preaching about, just what Jesus did for you and all of that. You definitely want to be singing, like, some proper worship songs. Like, there are some nice festive worship songs, like "Oh Come Let Us Adore Him," "Joy to the World," or whatever it is. Just
Last ones,
like,
yeah.
they're so good, and they're actual, like, proper worship songs. You're worshiping Jesus because it's about Jesus. It's Christmas, right? It's the coming of Christ. Get engaged in prayer with your family. Get to sit around and just kind of just look back with gratitude over, what's happened this year and what God has done in your lives and whatever it is. And it definitely is a time of fellowship, to hang out, like, to celebrate with your family and friends. And then I'm also thinking taking communion. I think taking communion is just an important thing to do in general, just to remember what Jesus did for you. And I think on Christmas, it sounds like a good time to do it as well. And then I love what you said on the last episode about taking that time to go out there and give back to people, because, again, we're celebrating what Jesus did for us. If I'm recognizing I'm a wretched sinner, in need of him to come and die for us, and he's given me this ultimate gift. All I can do as somebody who really recognizes what he did for me is go out there and share it, right? Go out there and share that love. And I'm taken back to what it says in James, I think it's James 4 verse 10, about how you mustn't just be one of those Christians where somebody comes, crying to you about how they're struggling with something, and you're kind of just like, oh, I'll pray for you, bro, or I'll do this, but like actually do something to help them, right? Like do something to help them. If it's within your means to go and help them, go and help them, right? Don't look during Christmas and be like, oh, that person's shame, man. So it sucks, that they're gonna have a cold Christmas and they don't have like a blanket or they don't have a home to go to or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Why don't you go out there and extend that love, right? Just spend some time with them,
Yeah.
share the gospel with them, give them a blanket. If you want to, invite them into your home or whatever it is, like just go out there and extend that love. I think that's an important thing to do. But I think, that's how I would celebrate Christmas biblically. I don't know, how would you do it, Darren?
Yeah. It's not a nice way to celebrate. Yeah, like I'd probably pretty much the same, where it's church, pray together, read about the birth of Jesus together. Yeah, like watch a Christian movie based around Christmas though, and like not those, not the Hallmark ones, not those ones. Yeah, just like simple, and then just maybe just like a chill day with the family, like nothing crazy, but it's going to be orientated around Jesus for sure. I like communion, good one as well, and then maybe ending the day of prayer. Yeah, fellowship. So yeah, I think that's probably how I would spend it. I think I did go into detail in the last one as well, last episode, but pretty much very similar to you, giving back as well, which is so good. Yeah, like God's given us a gift. Why not share that gift with everyone else as well? Let people see who Jesus is through our giving. Yeah, I think that's solid. I definitely celebrate like that as well.
Yeah. And I also think, like, imagine inviting a secular person to come and celebrate Christmas like that with you. Like, they'd be like, bro, where are the Christmas carols? Where's the pigs and blankets? It's like sausage wrapped around with bacon or whatever. Like, where's all this stuff? Where's the gifts? Where's all this stuff? It's like, why are we going out and like giving back to people? This isn't really how I was thinking of like spending Christmas.
Sure.
But I think it goes back to what you were saying about how it says we're aliens in this world, right? Like, we're not meant to live like this world. And I think we should, as Christians, I think it's just something we can do in general. Back to what I was saying about how we do things because we recognize what God has done for us, and we recognize that following what God has for us is the best decision we can make. Like, it genuinely is based on his character, and that he knows a lot more than we do. Even when we don't understand why we're doing certain things, like, we get to see it happen. And as Christians, I think if we can present our lives that way, if somebody comes and asks you, why are you doing Christmas this way? It's not oh, that's so wrong to go and like basically worship Santa and do all these things. We should be like, no, like, we love to spend time worshiping our Jesus because we recognize this is what he did for us. Take so much joy in just recognizing the love he's given to us. I think we can do a much better job of that as Christians in general, just in everything we do. When people ask us about things, we explain, yes, it's in the law, like God wants us to do it this way, and then we explain why we're so willing to do it as well. Maybe we struggle with it. Maybe we do struggle with it. Like, there's certain things God asks us to do, and I'm just like, we struggle with it. Like, we don't quite understand, but you can kind of explain, based on God's character, we do it this way. But I think it's important for us to realize that we are aliens in this world. We're not meant to live like this world. But another thing, the last topic I wanted to speak on in relation to this is the whole concept of like feeling lonely during Christmas. I know for me, I always feel like quite lonely during like holidays and stuff, because like right now, my family's all the way in New Zealand. Like, I'm not celebrating stuff with my family. There'll be like extended family and stuff, but like my core family, they're all the way in New Zealand. Like, I'm not doing any kind of celebrations with them, and it kind of feels lonely like during those periods. But I'm just thinking like during Christmas again, it's not about you. It's about him, right? It's about the birth of Christ. And when that focus shifts from me, which is what the world is all about, it's all about, how can I have fun this Christmas? How can I, just let loose and just have the greatest time in this Christmas and festive period? And it goes, the focus shifts to, how can I glorify God? How can I just be like so grateful for what he's done for me, right? Like, once that focus shifts, all of a sudden that loneliness isn't so like at the forefront of your mind, right? Like now all of a sudden you're like, oh wait,
Yeah.
I've got this God who's created everyone on this planet, right? Who's created all of us, right? Who sent his one and only son to die for me 2,000 years ago before I was even a thing, right? Like, whoa, what an incredible love, what an undeniable love. And like, if you just meditate on that, it's like, wow, like genuinely. And now you go out there and you share that with other people. I think once that shift focuses from how can I stop feeling lonely, or how can I make myself feel great, or how, oh, I'm feeling sad because everyone's like finding love or whatever it is. You're watching all these lovey-dovey Christmas movies, but I'm not finding that love. Um, all of a sudden, you're feeling depressed. But it takes me back to something I actually learned from Jordan Peterson. You're speaking about how the key to having good self-esteem isn't looking within yourself, because constantly looking in yourself is a recipe for disaster, right? Because you're always going to find problems with you. Going out, always thinking about, oh, what do these people think? Oh, why did this person not greet me when I wanted to greet them? Or why is this person looking at me? Are they judging like the way, I don't know, the way my haircut looks or whatever it is? Like, that's not it's a recipe for disaster. And he was saying that the one thing he gives like his clinical patients who struggle with like social anxiety is he actually tells them that like switch that focus. When you go into a social setting, focus on making one person feel more comfortable, right? Like just that way. All of a sudden, the focus has shifted. You're feeling better about yourself because you're not thinking about yourself as much, anyways. And now you're helping other people. And similar thing with Christmas, right? It's like, oh, it's not about how can I have a great Christmas this Christmas. It's like, how can I help somebody who's in need this Christmas? How can I share the love of God with them? Um, yeah,
Sure. That's really good. Yeah, it's taking, especially when you're lonely and stuff. I think it's taking the emphasis off you and putting on others. Most
yeah,
importantly on God and Jesus. Which I think is so good. And yeah, it's always a period of like in time where we feel as though we have to spend with people. We have to be around people. Like if we're not, then we're just depressed. Automatically we're just sad. We're just lonely. Um,
yeah,
that's what's always associated with Christmas. Like when people are lonely during Christmas. But as you're saying, it's all about Jesus. Like it's all about Him. When it's all about God and Jesus, and you just want to spend time with Him. You just want to spend time with God.
yeah,
The more you consume of the world, the more you're gonna become worldly. The more you consume of God, the more godly you're gonna become. Like it's simple. It's a simple formula. Um, and so yeah, like I think there's that narrative, that stereotype that like when you are lonely, it's not great. Christmas is gonna be boring, and it's not gonna be a good Christmas. But when you realize the real reasons and that you actually can spend time with Jesus on Christmas, it does give you joy and hope to know that like that is the best way to possibly spend it. So yeah.
yeah. And I think for me, something like that, I'd always hear about it, and it was something that I'm still battling with to some extent in terms of like, I deal with these feelings. I'm struggling with this, whatever it is. How can I find that satisfaction and security in God? Like, oh, I feel lonely, I don't have this or this or whatever it is. I don't have the friend group I want. I don't have the girlfriend I want or whatever it is. And actually being like, Jesus is enough, like finding Him to be enough. Like, that's something I've been battling with because it's hard to do. Like, how do you practically apply that? But I think one thing, like this last week, I've been I've been through the ringer. Like I've really been just stressed with work and stuff and just struggling. And I remember one of the things that always makes me feel good is just listening to music. And nowadays, now that I listen to worship music, like just something as simple as like singing the song "Worthy." Like for me, that's up there as one of my favorite worship songs. "Worthy" by Elevation Worship. "Worthy is your name." Yeah, that song. I'm like, there's a part, you're just singing like glory to God. And there's a part, where it's like, be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this
That's the
place. It's
best
like,
part.
yeah, it's like singing, bro. Like, dude, side note, there was this one conference that was happening at this one church. I wasn't able to go that Friday, but they were telling me how like they had sung like "Worthy," and then they wanted to like skip that part, but like the crowd just started singing that part, and then they were like, "Nah, dude, we're not skipping this part because it's like the best part." Um,
Crazy.
dude, I'm like, now I'm starting to get it as I'm immersing myself in God and all of that. Like now I'm feeling better. Like I've got all these troubles in my mind, but now I'm just saying, "Worthy is your name." be exalted now in the heavens as your glory fills this place. Like again, the focus is shifting back up to him, and I'm just marveling at his glory. And then also again, it's like if this glorious God created me, he cares about me, like what, what should I care about? Like honestly, well, why should I fear, or why should I have all these problems and stuff? Like why should I dwell so much on these problems? Like I'll be fine. I think yeah, that's something for me that's solved. But yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I don't know if you want to close out the episode, Darren.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Yeah, if God is for us, who can be against us? Well, it reminds me of that song as well. Like we used to always sing when we were younger. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Oh, dude.
Literally, like that's God, right? He has your whole future. He has your whole world. Nothing to fear about. And always another thing, like that TikTok I watched of Ali asked, where she said, like, whatever you're going through right now, whatever's happening in your life, why even care? Like, why bother? It's okay. Like, like you're gonna be with Jesus one day where you don't even have to worry about those things, where you're gonna be in a worry-free zone 24/7 for the rest of your life. Like, give it to him, pray about it, anything that you go through. And worship is like a huge it's like medicine for your soul. That's what it is. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for watching this episode. Like I really enjoyed talking about this. We spoke about very relevant points that hopefully you guys understand, like what Christmas should really be about. And if you're a believer and if you're someone that really wants to glorify God in this way, like Christmas should be spent differently. It shouldn't be like everyone else. It shouldn't be commercialized and all these festive things. Like, it's cool to be festive, but it's also good to be godly. It's even better to be godly. So finding ways to do that is very important. But yeah, we hope you guys really took some valuable lessons out of this. If you want to be a part of a Connect group, please be sure to check the link in the description. Basically, that takes us to our Discord, and yeah, you guys will join every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Central African time, and we'll be talking about this episode. So tomorrow night we'll literally be talking about Christmas, and going into depth about questions that we have, maybe questions you guys have as well. And yeah, we're going to be continuing with the series. I think one more episode should be.
One more episode, yeah.
One more episode, yeah. So stay tuned for that. Last part of the Christmas. Yeah, last part of the Christmas series. And yeah, guys, we'll see you next week. Hope you guys have a great week, and cheers.